Good evening and welcome to the June 16th council meeting. Members of the public were provided with the following methods to watch and or participate in the open meeting. You can attend in person at the North Dumfries Community Complex. You can attend electronically via Zoom to observe the meeting or to speak to an item on the agenda. Watch the live stream by accessing the meeting on the Township's YouTube page, and also its written comments that were given to the Clerk's Division were provided to council members and will form part of the public record. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank everyone for joining us this evening. We appreciate your participation. As we come together to serve the community, I ask that we create a welcoming and positive environment for everyone that includes respect, that we listen to each other with care and speak thoughtfully and engage kindly with one another. Kindness, that we treat everyone, council, staff, and the public with respect and understanding. And inclusion, that we embrace diverse perspectives and respect each other's opinions. Together we can make this meeting space one where respect, kindness, and inclusion are at the heart of everything we do. Behavior that is disrespectful, disruptive, aggressive, or intimidating will result in those individuals being asked to leave. I'd now like to call the meeting to order. Madam Approval of the agenda, please, Councilor Tilly.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Williams, that council adopt the June 16th, 2025 council agenda as presented with the following amendments. That agenda item 11.3.1, report number FIN 11-2025, audited financial statements be moved forward and be considered in association with agenda 7.1 presentations. And 2, that agenda item 11.2.2, report number FIN 12-2025, transfer to reserves 2024 year-end surplus be moved forward and be considered in association with agenda item 7.1 presentations.
Thank you. All those in favor? It's carried. I'd now like to do the Indigenous acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land on which we gather as the traditional territory of Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and mutual people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. And as we pause to reflect in a world where people are being polarized, our achievements of trying to come together with the Indigenous people is amazing and welcoming. We need to do better, and we can only do better as we walk side by side with these people. So let's start, pause and reflect with us. Thank you. Is there any disclosure clear and just to do there? Seeing none, presentation 7.1 Township External Auditors Presentation on the 2024 Audited Financial Statement. Tracy Smith and Engagement Partner and Robin Strandway Calder, Senior Manager and MNP LLP. Are they present or are they doing it online?
You're on Zoom.
Online. Thank you. Go ahead, folks.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the council for inviting me to your meeting this evening. I do have Robin Calder. Robin Strangway Calder is also on the call this evening. Now, I'm not sure if she's a panelist to be able to share her screen with us. Well, someone's sharing the screen, so
yep, it should be up now.
I appreciate that. So this is the first year I'm presenting to you as MNP LLP. So as of January 1st, 2025, 21 rural offices were rural BDO offices were transitioned to MNP. So all of those local BDO offices, partners, staff from Collingwood to Owen Sound down to Orangeville, we are now all operating as MNP. MNP is a Canadian firm established in 1958 with 150 offices from coast to coast. And so MNP's business model is designed to support its clients and team members and communities with a local focused approach. However, as a national firm, we still have all of the resources of a national firm to deliver any professional services that you may need. I would like to thank Christina and her team for their assistance during the audit. And since we are virtual, we'll take questions at the end of the presentation. As your auditor, it's our responsibility to communicate with those charged with governance. Our report in the agenda package with the fuzzy picture is our communication to council. The picture is actually meant to be fuzzy. These fuzzy pictures and the coffee cup with the MMP logo is the brand used by MMP in all of their correspondence. So you don't have a misprint on your report. The report contains all the required communications in accordance with Canadian auditing standards. The communication is very similar year to year, and it's also very similar to the one you saw last year from BDO. The content is defined by the auditing standards, so that is why it is similar every year. So I'm not going to go through the letter, but we'll provide just a brief summary of some of the points that I think are important to you as council and those charged with governance. I can confirm that MMP is independent to the township and able to give an independent audit report. We have completed an independent audit and can issue an unqualified audit opinion once the draft financial statements are approved by council and we complete our subsequent event procedures up until the approval date. There were no control weaknesses in the internal controls tested during the audit, and the unadjusted differences identified in Appendix B were not material, and as a result, we can issue an unmodified audit opinion. So again, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on that. It is very similar to the prior years. So I'm going to jump over to the separate document that is the draft financial statements. And it is found in your agenda package. And I'll just do a very high level overview of some of the financial highlights in that report also. So the audit report, report is on page 2 of the financial statement package. An audit is the highest level of assurance that can be provided by a public accounting firm. Management of the township is responsible for the preparation of the financial statements, and it is our responsibility as your auditor to provide an opinion on those financial statements prepared by your management team. Our opinion is in the second paragraph, and in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the position of the township in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So therefore, we're issuing a clean opinion, and we had no issues or concerns that came to our attention during the audit. About halfway through the audit report is the responsibilities of management. They're highlighted there in the middle. And at the bottom, those charged with governance are responsible for overseeing the township's financial reporting process, which means that's why we ask council to approve the draft financial statements. On the next page, it does go through all the responsibilities of the auditor. On page 4 of the financial statements is the statement of financial position or the balance sheet. So this is the township's assets and liabilities at a point in time. So on December 31st of 2024. On December 31st of 2024, total assets were 35.2 million. So the largest portion is 19.6 million in cash and 11.2 million in long-term investments. The cash did decrease in the year as 3.4 million obligatory reserve funds were used during the year to fund your capital projects. So you can see this in the corresponding decrease in the obligatory reserve funds in the liability section of the balance sheet down below. And in the liability section, 2.6 million of the development charges were used, and 750,000 from the Canadian the the Canada Community Building Reserve Fund, or for us that have been a while around, that was the old gas tax fund. So those are in the obligatory reserve fund liability section. The long-term investment, 11.2 million in the assets, is the township's investment in Grand Bridge and Energy Inc. For the liabilities on December 31st of 2024, the total liabilities were $10.3 million. The accounts payable, you can see, has some fluctuated and increased, and that does fluctuate from time to time depending on your timing of your capital projects. So at the end of 2024, there were large payables and holdbacks payable for projects that were just completed or almost completed at year end. And so again, it's a timing issue with those projects. Your other current liabilities include some developer deposits and refundable occupancy and other kinds of permits. The deferred revenue, 179,000, that is your unspent OSIF funding and some other grants, as well as recreational deposits. And we've shown that separately on your balance sheet from the obligatory reserve funds. So again, those obligatory reserve funds are the development charges and the Canadian Community Building Fund, and also in lieu of Parkland. And these are the monies that you have received, but you have not yet spent. So you don't record those as revenue until you actually spend the money. That brings us down to the net financial assets. So that's the financial assets less liabilities, and that's a key financial indicator. Positive means that you have resources available for the future. It increases when your reserves increase and when you have a surplus, and when you pay down your debt, then that amount increases. I also want to mention that you have paid down all of your long-term debt as of the end of 2024, so you no longer have any external debt owing. The non-financial assets section is where you find your capital assets. So that's all your physical assets. And they are at cost, not replacement value. And that includes costs of 121 million, less accumulated amortization of 77 million. Accumulated surplus is your equity that you've accumulated over time, both your monetary and your physical assets. And that totals $68.9 million. That includes 43.9 million invested in capital assets. It also includes the 11.2 million in your investment in Grand Bridge Energy, 13.1 million in reserves, and then just over $1 million in operating surplus. And we'll come back to that operating surplus in a minute. On the next page is your statement of operations, and there's the transactions for the year. So the revenues include all your external revenues for both operating and capital. Revenues for the year totaled $17.8 million. Now that was fairly close to budget, but a definite increase from the prior year of $14 million. You'll note that your grant revenue increased substantially and your other revenue increased. And so a major portion of that related to your capital projects. Your capital projects, you almost doubled in the value of your capital projects that you completed during the year. So there was offsetting grant revenue and using up your Canada Building Fund and using some of your development charges to pay for those. Unfortunately, the expenses, the capital expenses don't show here in your expenses on this page. These expenses only include your operating expenses and your amortization. So again, it does not include the capital purchases or your transfers to reserve. The expenses totaled $12.2 million for the year. And that does, it is higher than your budget column, but just want to note that your budget column does not include amortization, because you don't have to budget for that in your operating budget. The annual surplus of 5.5 is the external revenues less the expenses. So it is important to note again that that annual surplus is not your operating surplus that you use for budgeting purposes and for setting tax rates. The operating surplus was 1,029,510, and that can be seen in notes 9 and 11. And I believe there is a report coming to you to determine how to allocate those funds. The annual surplus on this page focuses on the long term. So it's the amount of external revenues raised during the year after paying all your operating costs and covering amortization. So the annual surplus on this page, the $5.5 million, it should always be positive, and it should always be a fairly large number, because that annual surplus has to be used to fund your capital purchases, both now and into the future. So on the next page, we take that annual surplus of $5.5 million and we adjust for the actual capital purchases and the amortization that was included in your expenses. You'll note that your acquisition of tangible capital assets almost doubled. It was an increase of 4.2 to $7.5 million during the year. So that brings us down to your net increase or decrease in net financial assets. The budget amount is negative because the township had budgeted for even more capital projects during the year that had not moved forward. So there was the township had budgeted to take money out of reserves to pay for those capital projects. So that's why the actual number is a positive number, because those funds did not come out of the reserves for those capital projects. So that's a very high level overview, and I will maybe turn it over so that we can take some questions if you have any questions.
Is there anybody in the public that has any questions? Seeing none, councillors. Seeing none, can I have a motion, please, Councillor Mills?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Holman, that the presentation from Tracy Smith, engagement partner, and Robin Stringway Helder, senior manager with NMP LLP, regarding the township's 2024 audited financial statements be received with thanks.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And next we're going to 11.2.1 and 11.2.2, which is the audited financial statement. Audited financial statement. Who's doing this?
Right, Madam Mayor.
I'm at, okay, let's go after them. Does it? Nobody. Nobody has the public again? Public doesn't even report. Okay, we just asked them. Okay, so the question, any questions from the public on the report? Or council? Seeing none, thank you. And that goes to Councillor Austin, you have a motion, please? Oh, it's the transfer of reserves, that's what we're supposed to be doing. 11.2.2.
No, Madam Mayor, we've got to approve the financial statement first. You just read the presentation.
All right.
Now you actually have to approve the financial statement.
I mean-
They're in a draft. And the council deals with them.
Councillor Austin, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Roman, that report number FIN 11/2025 be received, and the council approved the 2024 audited financial statements for the Township of North Dumfries presented as attachment number 1 to this report. and that council authorize that the 2024 audited financial statements be finalized and published.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Now. We are going to 11.2.2, transfer to reserves, 2024 year-end supplies. Ms. Bratz?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I didn't really have anything prepared because I thought the report speaks for itself. However, I'm happy to take questions if there are any.
Any questions from the public? Council? Council Roman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is through staff. I'm just wondering, with this $1 million surplus, is this the time to take this money and begin to work on the ECC?
CEO McNeely?
Madam Mayor, through to Council Roman. We have effectively lost the 2025 construction season to do anything at the ACC. We haven't retained any external firm to undertake the preparation of the design drawings and or the bid documents in support of different phases of the exterior rehabilitation. We were proposing to come back to council in the early fall of 2025 to retain, go to the marketplace and retain a consultant so that we're ready for April of 2026 to actually physically commence work at the earliest point in time.
Ms. Bratz and then Council Roman?
If I may add to that as well, part of our recommended transfer is $350,000 to facility reserves, which would be available for either the ACC or any other facility.
Council Roman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So that was my next question. Then could we adjust the numbers? Because I believe the proposed work for the ACC on the exterior was about 880,000. Could we change the facility reserve to 880 and then look at the remaining amount and divide it up amongst the other reserves?
CEO McNeely?
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Rowland, the exterior work for the ACC is closer to $2.8 million.
Any other questions? Councillor Austin?
Just following Councillor Rollman's train of thought. Could we not set up a reserve for the ACC and keep that monies aside? And anytime that we get it, just trying to make the financial burden a little easier on us, so it all of a sudden we're not, okay, where are we gonna find 2.9 million? I know we talked about from the land transfer in Cambridge, that we were gonna put $1 million aside for that. We have a surplus now, and it might be prudent for us to think about doing that, so we don't have to start adjusting things later or adjusting the 10-year capital forecast or you know, taking money from other projects. Because I think that some of the money from the land sale, we also need to put things into roads and stuff too. So I'm just thinking that if we have a surplus, let's put it to good use so that things are on a solid foundation of getting this work done.
Could I ask staff to please explain the breakdowns and why you set up the way you got?
Madam Mayor, the first application is of the approximate $1 million 2024 year-end surplus. First 100,000 has been identified for heritage studies or any work program associated with heritage assets. Council may recall, we directed staff to prepare terms of reference for a cultural heritage landscape study that is looking at the Spraguesville corridor district, and separate to that, there could potentially be coming out of analysis associated with the built heritage inventory, which council dealt with at the last meeting. There could potentially be the need to retain a consultant to also look at and score, evaluate properties that might warrant consideration for Part 4 designation under the Ontario Heritage Act. Both of those aspects are presently unfunded in the 2025 budget. The planning reserve account in Township Council's 10-year forecast for the period of 2025 to 2034. And we have a series of planning studies that are required in part to implement improvements, modernization, more sophistication in our various planning documents, both in terms of both our official plan as well as our implementing zoning bylaw amendment. Some of this has been triggered because of changes in the provincial planning statement that was approved by the province of Ontario in October 2024, as well as the realities coming out of Bill 23 and the transfer of planning responsibilities from the region to the Township of North Dumfries. This transfer of 129,000 essentially zeroes out what is identified right now in the 10-year forecast in periods 25 and 26 as a deficit. There is not sufficient funds in the present planning reserve account to complete all of those tasks. The infrastructure reserve and the facilities reserve is not specific to any one project. Infrastructure speaks to our linear infrastructure system, which includes bridges, roads, sidewalks, and the streetlight network. Facilities is our inventory of various buildings across the township. Council recall, infrastructure and your facilities represent your biggest spend over the 10-year period. And there are a number of years where we are essentially zeroing out our reserve accounts to meet one or more of the capital undertakings, either under infrastructure and or facilities. And so the contribution of approximately 700,000 divided amongst the two accounts will help smooth out some of those tighter spots in terms of completing future capital undertakings as outlined in the working reserve account, the two infrastructure and facilities reserve accounts. The $100,000 set aside for working reserves. These are funds that are pooled. They're available for corporate use. Basically, they assist with internal cash flow. So if there's a delay in the receipt of property tax payments, remembering as we collect property taxes, we have installments that we have to pay to the region of Waterloo, as well as the public school board and Catholic school board, whether we've collected the property taxes or not. And so partly this funds our operations between installments if cash is tight, and or it allows us to temporarily do internal borrowing and not rely on the line of credit. And as we look at some of the major capital undertakings that are proposed for the 25 to 2027 time period, the ability to move monies internally and fund and smooth out cash withdrawals, the working reserve account will allow us that flexibility rather than using our line of credit and or other external financing like a construction loan. So that is how staff have identified the approximate 1 million in surplus and the priority points that have been identified by staff.
Councillor, Ms. Brox, do we know how much we've already spent this 2025 so far on covering people's taxes that they haven't been able to pay, or water bills that they haven't been able to pay? Because we have to pay both of those to the region, regardless of whether the person can pay it or not.
Madam Mayor, that is why we requested, that is why we requested the increase to the reserve, because our taxes arrears are going up, partially because we keep adding every quarter water bills to people's taxes that are unpaid, and partially because we are seeing higher arrears. We are working on various collections methods to make sure that we can get that down, but it is becoming a little bit of a timing from the cash flow perspective. So I believe we were sitting about $1.7 million in tax arrears.
1.7 million in tax arrears. Thank you. Councillor Austin.
So when we have people that are in arrears for that and we have to pay, do we not offload that onto the taxes and arrears? We charge no interest on that, or that's part one.
Madam Answer first, and then we'll do part two.
Okay, do you want to answer that first?
So yes, that is correct. Anyone who does not pay is subject to an interest charge, and it is 15% a year, so it is quite a high rate. So I do encourage people to look at your mortgages, because we're paying less interest to a bank, but that is because we're not a financial institute. We really can't afford to be somebody's bank, so that is why that is. And that is the standard across all of Ontario. And that is one of the reasons part of my surplus is that our interest on our arrears was actually higher than we budgeted.
Councillor Ashton.
Okay, the second thing with that is, if we wouldn't have had a surplus, what would staff have done?
That's where we use the line of credit, etc. But go ahead, Ms. Ross. Or CEO McNeil, either one can take.
Like, as far as it goes with all these numbers, not just one in particular. Like, we're spending money that's a windfall.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Austin. The accounts that we've identified, other than the heritage studies, because that's something that recently council has identified that they wish staff to further delve into. All of the other accounts were identified in your reserve continuities for each of those topical areas in the 10-year forecast. And for each of those accounts, where they show up in red print, the account is in a deficit negative position. And these transfers to reserves, specific to planning reserve, the infrastructure reserve, and the facilities reserve, would assist council not having to incur those edge points. The forecast is just that, it is a forecast, and the budget's only approved on an annual basis, and those projects are brought forward. Obviously, in that given year, if we do not have the funds available, then that's presented to council, and those projects typically have not advanced forward for delivery in that fiscal year and are pushed out into a later time period, and or they're modified in terms of scope to bring it back within an allowance that is acceptable to Township Council.
Councillor Bowman.
Madam Mayor. So just to follow up what Councillor Oster was saying, so if this is a windfall, if you look at the report on page 2 of the report, it talks about the three first bullet points, $596,000 from interest revenue, $185,000 from supplementary taxes, and $66,000 from interest and penalties exceeding the budget. That to me is a windfall. That's not something that we planned for. So I would like to see windfall money, as Councillor Oster called it, put into a special reserve for the ACC, and then $107,000 over budget from staff. Perhaps that can go to the other reserves, but I think if this truly is a windfall, then we should take it for what it is, and if we need to figure out how to fund the infrastructure reserve and the working reserve and all the other things, and that's what we do at the point at the 10-year capital forecast meeting in August.
Any other comments? Councillor Robinson.
I think as much as we'd like to see the ACC funded, we also need to think about all the other bridges that need to get funded too. And we need to, what I like about this proposal is, even though it's a windfall, it does kind of divvy up things across projects rather than picking a single project that we're going to now try to favor over other things. And we have to fund everything somehow, but I support the motion as written, rather than trying to lump it all into one area.
Councillor Taylor.
So just a question, Councillor Roman and Councillor Ossner, would it be satisfactory to, some of it obviously would, I think 100,000 for the heritage study, if it's gonna come out, we should probably have that set up ready to go. Let's start looking at something similar to the 129,000 for the planning reserve. But if the infrastructure and the facilities reserves are there for potential projects but aren't specifically allocated, I would be okay with getting something started for the ACC and putting that in. So again, so instead of putting it all in, can we say a percentage goes towards something like that? Is that something that we could probably agree upon?
Councillor Ashton.
So this was my exact concern when I voiced my concern at the last meeting about funding for the ACC. Because we can go through a 10-year capital forecast and always find something else to spend the money on. Rather than the ACC, we can always come up with an excuse not to rehabilitate the ACC, and that's exactly why I didn't want to get into this position where we're making excuses. We need to do this, we need to do that. Yeah, we need to do a lot of things. We also needed to do those things when we decided on a twin pad. We also needed to do those things when we decided that we're gonna keep Footbridge open. You know, like, there's always another decision that will supersede a decision. But as council, we talked about rehabilitating our ACC. We've got an easy way of doing it. Until this report came out, we had no idea we had $1 million. So now is a good time to put the money where our mouth is and actually do what we say we're gonna do.
Council Rose.
I'm a bit concerned that, one thing that Councilor Officer says that we're gonna prioritize other things over the ACC again. I don't, that's not my thought at
I
all.
resent that comment tremendously.
My thought is we need to make sure everything is balanced.
Yes.
And that is why I like this approach, where we do kind of try to balance everything that we need to do. I get it, we do need to rehabilitate the ACC, but we need to figure this out. I'm not at all, I don't wanna see that thing fall down. I wanna make sure we revitalize it and we have a really good use for it and that the community can enjoy it for many, many years to come. The problem is we have a lot of other things and I like the idea of kind of keeping things smooth over until we've made these big decisions and we can really start assessing what everything is costing, how to figure out the timeline of all this work that needs to happen. So that is why I like this report. I liked how it's structured. If we want to put a, if we want to play a little bit with some of the funds, and it's like put an extra 400,000 aside for the ACC in order to indicate if that makes council feel like that the ACC is indeed a priority, then that's fine. I just want to make sure we look at things as a holistic approach because we have to. And as much as we all want to see things, none of us want to see bridges fall down, none of us want to see the ACC fall down, but we all have to just be thoughtful about how we spend money.
And yeah, I actually resent the comment. I resented it last time when you stated it. Was it 360,000 that CCG along with the township put into the ACC years ago, John? Because when back before you were on council, just before you were on council, the air conditioning was falling out the doors, the windows were crumbling, and it was a dive. So CCG put in $360,000, as did the township, to renovate the ACC and the washrooms. And I think they did a pretty darn good job. Now, since then, things have still deteriorated, and we have to, and every year, certain amounts of money goes to the ACC. Now, be it for the ice surface, and I think this council has dealt with that year after year after year. Now we're heading for a better project. It has to be done right. But we have money set aside. There is grant money hopefully coming. And then I agree with Councilor Bell, but it is our responsibility for the township as a whole. When we passed the grant for the twin pad, we did not ignore other parts of our township. We tried to find a system that will work. We're trying now to find a system that will work for the ACC. But we can't ignore that we are going to have to pay people's taxes and what. I already talked to the region last week about it and said, if we don't get it, why do we have to pay you? And that wasn't an option, they said. So we have to pay them. The planning reserves, plans coming down to us, but the money's not coming down. So we have to deal with that as well. So I do resent it. I resented it last week when you said it, the last council meeting. But I do agree that we should put aside and label ACC funding. Go ahead, Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The comment is not made as to what the CCGA did or did not do. The comment is made, now we're talking about going slow and steady and doing all these different projects. There's other projects that have been pushed through pretty quickly. And now we have projects that we have, like, that building is got how much life left in it right now. And we've had a bridges study report done. And we have reserves set aside for roads. We have a 10-year capital forecast that we've been working on. And we have 2 projects now that have come to light with the twin pad and the ACC rehabilitation. So that's what I'm focusing on. We have addressed the twin pad. The way we've addressed the twin pad, it's going ahead as is, and that's a good project. But we can't neglect the ACC. We
Nobody
need
wants
to, I know nobody wants to, but nobody also wants, like, I don't see anybody stepping up and saying, okay, we're gonna put this money aside now as a foundation to prove to the community that we're serious about getting this done. And I'd like to see some money put aside for the ACC rehabilitation. Even if it's that 350, 500,000, it doesn't have to be the full million, but I'd like to see it labeled as commitment to the ACC. And that's what our community is looking for. And I'm sorry that you resent that, but that's what our community is looking for.
And I did not say we wouldn't, and Councillor Scott, Terry actually made that comment a few minutes ago, that we would look at taking some of that and putting it, and that's what this council has to decide how much and where. But I do resent that you have been constantly, in my opinion, stating that we are letting it fall and we're going to let this thing go away or whatever. And that's not the intent. We have made the commitment. We have made it publicly, and I believe this council and this staff stand by that. So, Councillor Tilly, what was your recommendation?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my proposal would be, now, I need to honestly declare my concern with the linear infrastructure, that at some point we're gonna have to do something, but that's another page. That can be entirely with our budget discussion in August. I have no concern about that, because it'll resolve itself. But I do believe we're gonna be going to the community to try and increase our linear infrastructure budget, because we're not getting ahead, and seeing what's happening with the state of the roads, I'm getting concerned about that. So the fact that I saw that for the linear infrastructure, that was good. But at the same time, I don't disagree with yourself or with Councilor Roman, that it is something that we didn't plan for. And if you were to win the lottery, or you didn't get extra money back in taxes, you would look at something maybe that you would do that you wouldn't normally do if you didn't have that. So I wouldn't see any problem with the 50-50. I mean, put 50 into the air ACC and allocate the rest into these other areas. When we have to get to the point where we're going to deal with, and again, the big one now, and I thank Councilor Roman for this, is Hall Street. Like that is something that's important, and we need to put money away for it. It's fine for now. The same thing, and I guess Councilor Ossner, I don't disagree with the word you said. The only thing is, as much as it's degrading and it needs to start on that, we're not dealing with a falling down building. We're just in a building that needs to be rehabilitated. So I don't want to say that we're going to put it off at any period of time. We just need to start putting, like you said, put some money into the pile and start building that reserve up specifically for the ACC. So that's my opinion, and I'm happy to work with everybody on that.
Would you like to put forward a motion?
I just saw Alita burn, or Councilor Roman's burn it up.
I concur with what Councillor Tilly is getting at. I'm not sure 500,000 is something, but at least the 350 for facilities reserve should be we can allocate to a dedicated ACC reserve. If we want to pile a little bit out for some other ones, that's fine with me. I really do like the heritage study, and it hasn't been funded. I think that would be great to fund some of those initiatives, especially since we are on a tight timeline if we want to do anything with heritage in the next little bit. But I'm open to set recommendations.
So what would you recommend, a half or 350?
Okay.
I need a motion.
Certainly. So just speaking out loud here, keep the allocation of 100,000 to heritage, keep the allocation of a 129, keep the allocation of 100,000 to working reserve. And then we get specific on what that last 700 that's available there. We put possibly the 500,000 to specifically to the ACC. And the remaining amount goes to infrastructure reserve. That's my proposal, and if everybody's good with that. Sorry, I said 500. 500,000. Yeah, I said
500,000. See, only facility reserves of 350. What was that? Did you have any specific for that?
So Madam Mayor, we have a group or a pooled reserve facilities, plural. And we undertake major capital undertakings. Drawing from the facility reserve, it's not specific to any one address. It's a pooled account available to all of your buildings, structure inventory.
So I'd like to have the money from the ACC. Would you make the motion, please?
Sure.
Just dictate it to.
But point of order, we still have a motion on the table.
Correct, or amended a motion. Can we amend the motion? Regional council can amend it. Can we hear?
So Madam Mayor, the motion has to be introduced with the seconder. And then you have your discussion. And through your discussion, there could be a recalibration of one or more of the accounts. And that would be then the mover and seconder would be asked if there is a friendly amendment to the, I'll call read out motion. And if there's an agreement between the mover and the seconder, then you would be calling a vote on the amended resolution.
Thank you. Can I have a motion, please, Councillor? Oh, Councillor Osmond?
Yeah, can I make one more? Sorry, I just wanted to just respond to Councillor Tilly. I'm not worried about the ACC falling down.
No.
I'm worried about making a commitment to all those people that sent emails and concerns and worries about the ACC not being looked after. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried addressing our residents. I'm not worried about it falling down because I think the timeline we talked about is an acceptable timeline anyway. I just want to put something aside as an ACC reserve to show all these people that sent their concerns that it is going to be done.
Can I have a motion, please, Councillor Roman?
Moved by myself by Council Tilly that Fin Report number 12-2025 be received and that council approve the following transfers to reserves for 2025 from the 2024 year-end surplus in the amount of $1,029,510 as follows. A, allocation of 100,000 to Heritage Studies and Work Program Reserve. B, allocation of 129,510 to Planning Reserve. Allocation of 350,000 to Infrastructure Reserve. Allocation of 350,000 to Facilities Reserve. And allocation of 100,000 to Work Reserve.
Questions or comments? Councillor Roman?
Madam Mayor, there's a discussion about changing some of the allocation numbers. So if we change the allocation numbers, as Councilor Tilly suggests, creating, I guess D would be changed to 500,000 for the ACC reserve. And then the remaining 150,000 would remain for the infrastructure reserve. Is that correct, Councilor Tilly?
With that adjustment to the infrastructure reserve, that would take the infrastructure reserve to 200,000 and then leave the working reserve at $100,000.
Right.
You check my room? I am, yes.
So now, Madam Mayor, you'd ask the mover and seconder for the original motion, whether they're comfortable with the friendly amendment as just read out.
Well, since the suggestion came from Councillor Roman, you're referencing Councillor Tilly, I assume that you're in favor, and Councillor Rams, oh, wait, no, Tilly was that. Councillor Tilly, you're in favor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Six, seven. Can you read the amended motion, please, Councillor Roman?
Moved by myself, second by Council Tilly, that in report number 12-2025 be received, and that council approve the following transfers to reserves for 2025 of the 2024 year-end surplus in the amount of $1,029,510 as follows. A, allocation of $100,000 to Heritage Studies and Work Program Reserve. B, allocation of $129,510 to Planning Reserve. C, allocation of $200,000 to Infrastructure Reserve. D, allocation of $500,000 to ACC Facilities Reserve. And E, allocation of $100,000 to Working Reserve.
All those in favor? Carry, thank you. All right. We've heard allocations. Request of the lift anything from the consent agenda. Any requests? Members of the public? Seeing none, Council Tilly, please.
Moved by myself, second by Council Williams, that the following information items as listed on June 16, 2025 consent agenda be received. Information items, communications, A, resolution received from District of Perry Sound Municipal Association regarding supporting municipal ethics through access education. B, resolution received from the town of
Whitchurch, there's an email. Oh, it is Whitchurch?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Stouffville regarding provincial funding shortfall of human and health programs and services. C, resolution received from the city of Waterloo regarding Bill 17. And D, resolution received from the municipality of Marks Day, Warren regarding strong strong mayor powers.
All those in favor? Carry, thank you. So we got, that's all those. This is all done? No, this isn't done, it's the wrong. There we go, here. Okay. Next up is 11.3.3, report number BLE 10/2025, noise exemption request for 158 Mitchell Street. Any members of the public wish to speak? Any questions, council? Can I have the motion, please, Councillor Williams?
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Oster, that BLE report number 10-2025 be received, and that council grant an exemption from the noise bylaw number 3421-23 on Saturday, July 19, 2025, from 7 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. for the purpose of a backyard birthday party to be held at the property located at 158 Mitchell Street, there.
All those in favor? Carry, thank you. Next is 11.2.4, report number BLE 11/2025, noise exemption request for 1862 West River Road. Any members of the public? Any members of council? Can I have the motion, please, Councillor Osmer?
Moved by myself, second by Council Roman, that BLE report number 11-2025 be received. That the council grant an exemption from the noise bylaw number 3421-23 on Saturday, July 12, 2025, from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. for the purpose of a backyard party to be held at the property located at 1862 West River Road, North Dumfries.
All those in favor? Carry, thank you. Alright. Next is 11.2.5, report number BLE 12/2025, noise exemption from 3399 Roseville Road. Any members of the public? Any members of council? Can I have the motion, please, Councillor Roman?
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Oster, that report number BLE 12-2025 be received, and that council grants an exemption with noise bylaw number 3421-23 on Friday, July 18th, and again on Saturday, July 19th, 2025, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. for both dates, and on Sunday, July 20th, 2025, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. for the purpose of a backyard wedding to be held at the property located at 3399 Roseville Road, Roseville.
All those in favor? Carry, thank you. Oh, next is 11.2.6 is report number rec 2025 Grounds Community Park remaining contest. Did you want to say anything, Ken? No. Any members of the public have any questions or comments? So now I believe we have to decide on a name. Councillor Williams and then Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also want to thank Richard Winter for facilitating this contest and for everybody who contributed. My personal preference is for Acorn Park. I think the name is very nice, and it also, just the write up there about North Dumfries. It's honoring our natural roots, it's looking into the future, and I just quite think that that's a very nice thing. Thank you.
Council Roman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the questions I have through you to staff is, the last time we named a park, there was discussion about having indigenous acknowledgement. And this time with park, I see there's nothing mentioned. I'm just curious, were there no appropriate indigenous names available, or did staff just overlook it? So,
Ms. Winters.
Through Mayor Foxton to Councilwoman, when we did the other parks, we did the same thing, we put it out there. We never asked, this is a contest, the other one, sorry, let me go back. When we did Scana Park, staff picked those names and then asked you to choose. This was a naming contest, very similar to Appleyard Park, so staff did not have any input into those names. Does that make sense?
Any other comments? Okay, so we've got Acorn. Council Tilly, what do you think?
I would second Acorn.
Council Austin.
I like the Warriors Farmstead.
I like those as well. Council Roman.
I think Forest sounds good.
Miss Wilms, Council Wilms.
Yeah, there's already Orrs Lake right next door. And there might also be an opportunity, there's a trail through the park, so there might be an opportunity as well to call that Orrs Farmstead Lane or trail or something like that. So there's an opportunity there as well to honor Orrs Farm, the Orrs Farmstead at the same time.
Councilors, do you want to compromise with that, Council Austin?
Good question. Are there a lot of acorn trees there?
Council Roman.
Madam Mayor, I guess the concern I have is that acorn or oaks, whatever, it just sounds very sort of generic. All of our other parks have more meaning to them, so I'm just kind of concerned that we picked something that doesn't have any meaning. Acorn Park doesn't really mean anything. Ours mean something, or even call it Browns Park would mean more. Just to pick a generic name, that's a name that any subdivision can have anywhere in the greater Toronto area. I don't think it really has any real meaning. So I was hoping to go for something a little more pertinent.
Council Austin.
We spent a lot of time at the last meeting talking about heritage and stuff like that. I actually would have thought you'd prefer a more of a heritage name than of a tree, like I could call my place Dandelion Yard.
And then you have no.
There's a lot of it there. If I didn't have dandelions, I wouldn't have grass. But I mean, whatever everybody thinks, I'm okay with. I just thought that the heritage was more of a way to go with a lot of these, to honor the heritage of the past.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is going to be quite a few, I think, plans for signs and information about the heritage of the place. This really is quite a fascinating bit of heritage there for North Dumfries. It's one of the oldest areas that were settled. So it is pretty cool. So there will be plaques and there will be opportunities throughout the trail to review and understand the history of that area. So I understand where you're coming from, Councilor Oster, but yeah, so there will be ways we can still keep the heritage in mind.
Councilor Tilly.
So the discussion has helped me a little bit, and one of the concepts is finding places. When you're looking for a place to find a place, if it was called Orrs Park, you would kind of know it's in the same area. You wouldn't be looking around. Whereas, so I mean, I don't know that Browns would help me anymore than, other than I'm in the village of Brown. That would help me to identify that. So I could see that point of view. If you, not only is it part of the heritage, it's actually now you're dealing with that area. Or actually, like Council Roman said, is just keep it Browns. Park. So that's, yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna be a really crappy person with this winters. What if we ask the people to decide?
Well, to you, Madam Mayor, if that's the case, you did do like another survey. Another contest, like we narrowed it down from the 5 to and they picked the top 3. These are the top 3. I can tell you which one was the top one if you want.
Please.
It was Oakwoods Park. That was number 1. Acorn Park was number 2, and Orr's Farmstead Park was number 3.
Not quite the answer I was.
No.
Why don't we do Acorn then? It's the middle one, so between the two. Is Acorn okay?
Seems to be the consensus from the, sorry, it seems like to be the consensus from the area of people who are, sorry, through you, Mayor, to Director Winters. If you don't mind me asking, what was the response level? It's kind of cool that you're there, but also just to see what member of the population actually did respond back.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Tilly, there was on the second round of this, there was 125 votes.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
That's pretty good. Okay.
And they want,
Council Roman.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. So with that information, I guess then the name should be Oakwood Park. That's what people have asked for.
I sort of agree. Lots, councillors. Councillor Wilms, go right ahead.
So it'd be Oakwood Park and Oakwood Drive. Yeah, I'm. The ones that, it doesn't really matter to me, but I do know I had some requests for Acorn, but I'm. Whatever one works. Pardon?
so
Councillor Oscar, gosh. the
what if we
toughest one to
change
beat.
Oakwood Drive to Acorn Drive?
There we go. I second that motion.
Would someone like to propose a motion for this? Or wait,
Me.
council confirm the new park name will be, or, and Council Tilly, you have to inside it and we'll
Okay,
appropriately.
move by itself, second by Councilor Osner, that rec report number 2025 be received. And the council confirm the new park name as Oakwoods Park for the existing neighborhood park at 24 Oakwood Drive.
All those in favor? Carried.
Once we were given the news from Karen, we had to go with that.
Maybe I shouldn't ask the question anyways.
Be different if there's 5 people, but that's a good number.
Okay, so next we have 11.2.7, which is rec report 21-2025, outdoor pickleball court. Any questions, comments from the public? Councilors, any questions? Councilor Austin.
So it's gonna be at Schmidt Park, right? The one court?
Madam Mayor, through Councillor Oscar, 2025 and the balance of the 2025 season, we're proposing a court at both
Oh,
Jim Schmidt Memorial Park and Victoria Park.
thank you.
No, Council Williams.
Through you, Madam Mayor, so one of the things in the report indicated that staff would check out on court usage, would that be, are these courts like something that people sign up for, or people just kind of show up and do whatever? So I was just wondering if it is just a show up kind of thing, how would staff track things? Thank you.
Miss Winters, I dare advertise, Miss Winters.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Wilms. We have talked about it on our team, and you're right, it is going to be a challenge, but we do have our park staff circulating through the parks on certain times, and so they'll record what time it was there, what time they were there, and then how many people were playing either pickleball or tennis. That's the best I can do without, having someone there, but that just makes there be more presence at that park for the time.
Councilor Bowman.
Madam Mayor, so through you to Director Winter, I guess. What I was hoping we would see in the long run would be a dedicated pickleball court, so I was hoping like a actual place for pickleball play only by itself, with no tennis. So I'm hoping down the road, Victoria Park would end up being just for pickleball. And then the 3 courts up at Schmidt remain tennis. And then the tennis camps to run up there and they would lose any tennis camp space. Then we'd have a dedicated place just for pickleball. People would identify that as location. They would go there. But that's what happens in other centers. They have it's not a split between tennis and pickleball. It's you go here to play pickleball. And the pickleball faction has educated me on that and told me that that's what they prefer. So.
Councillor Osmond.
I'm drawing a blank. I had a question. Oh, I know what it was. Up at the parks, the tennis courts or the pickleball courts, is there a sign up telling people, could you kindly keep your usage on the court to 45 minutes or like, so other people have a chance to play?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Oster, yes, the signing says 30 minutes if others are waiting.
Okay, thank you.
CO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Rowland, the specific question you asked. The whole point of the interim proposal that's been put forth is a relatively low cost aspect in terms of cash outlay. And it allows us to monitor activity and uptake. There's obviously an opportunity for the community to also weigh in and provide their thoughts as we move through the 2025 outdoor season. It is outlined in the staff report and identified in the 4th recommendation contained in the staff report. But at the end of the 2025 outdoor season, we'll return to council with a report. And based on what has been revealed in terms of uptake, we'll outline a strategy going forward. It may involve recommendations future years to spend money because we'd actually have to repaint the courts and reline them, because right now all 5 courts are set up for tennis with pickleball lines within the boundaries of a tennis court. And if you were to make, for example, all of Vic Park set aside for pickleball, you're probably looking at between 4 and 6 pickleball courts based on the footprint of the space of 2 full-size tennis courts. But we actually have to resurface it in terms of painting and then relining accordingly, and then obviously sink new posts and buy new nets. You may find that there are other alternatives in terms of physically building dedicated pickleball courts and maintain your inventory of 5 tennis courts. I mean, there's a whole series of different options available to you. The whole point of the 2025 program this year is to monitor activity and then inform a strategy going forward, which we then discussed as part of your 10-year capital forecast and 2026 capital budget. But we would be returning at the end of the fall this year. That would assist you as you start thinking about next year's deliverables.
No further question. Councillor Williams, please the motion.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Tilly, that report number 1-2025 be received, and that council approve option number 1, authorizing the installation of 1 temporary pickleball net on the existing dual-use courts at both Victoria Park and Jim Schmidt Memorial Park, thereby designating 1 court at each facility for dedicated pickleball use for the 2025 season. And that staff monitor activities and uptake of both tennis and pickleball usage at both park locations, and undertake a community survey during the balance of the outdoor 2025 season. And that staff return at the close of the 2025 outdoor season with a follow-up report on court usage at both park facilities, with a recommendation to inform the 2026 capital budget and or the 10-year capital forecast from 2026 to 2035.
All those in favor? Carried. Okay. And next, 11.2.8, report number rec 2025 memorandum of understanding with North Dumfries Community Health Center Lanes. Any members of the public wish to speak on this? Councillors, any questions or comments? Councillor Williams and then Councillor Woolman.
So it's really, I'm excited to see this on the agenda as a member of the advisory committee for Langs. And I think it's awesome that we're going to be pairing with them more closely. I'm excited about the youth room. I'm excited about the developments that are also going on with the seniors. My question for you to Mayor, to staff is, so a lot of the work that we're currently doing with youth and seniors, the focus is within the area, which makes a lot of sense. That's where the bulk of our population is. But is there any way we could also look at programming that extends beyond air, like maybe have run an outdoor program for kids at Bridgeton or I know or Oakwood Park. Or some kind of seniors activities as well that go beyond air. So that was my question.
CEO McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Committee Councilor Williams. Certainly in our initial years, I'm gonna suggest years 1 to 3, we are focusing largely at this address and leveraging the space in this building to create critical mass. As we develop work programs for years 3, years 4, years 5, there is the opportunity for us to look at pop-up programming, which could either be outdoor and or indoor, especially if we're able to make arrangements for another building in wards 3 or 4, where we could run some indoor programming. Certainly the Leisure Services Master Plan that was tabled in June of 2022 identified the need to provide both formal and informal structured leisure or recreational programming in recognition of wards 3 and 4. We have not lost sight of that. So it's a matter of building up asset. And part of it is just our own infrastructure. And what I mean now, I'm talking about the staff infrastructure, both our staff and that of Langs, before we start spreading ourselves out across the footprint of the township, understanding that in wards 3 and 4, it's going to take us a little bit longer to cultivate those relationships and start building that interest, where we have the critical mass to support some of that program, indoor and or.
Councilor Bowman, Councilor Taylor, did you have anything?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is through the CEO. I'm wondering about the use of the ACC in the future as we move to have that facility turn into indoor gymnasium space. Will Langs be involved in programming youth activities at this new facility?
CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, as we create new space or space with different opportunities for programming, then yes, those opportunities would exist. That's why the back end of the agreement is a little bit more vague in terms of high level, because it could be based on, as we suggest today, timelines in our capital forecast to bring other facilities either on stream or through the adaptive reuse, new indoor space for different purposes. They give us a broader inventory. And that would be, if I look at specifically the adaptive reuse of the ACC. You know, if we're thinking about it as a gymnasium type facility, great opportunities for seniors level programming, recreation during the business day, which is typically quiet. But lends itself largely to that population cohort. And then in the late afternoons and evenings, obviously focusing on young adults or on youth. And so those opportunities are there, but they can become a little bit more crystallized as these facilities either new built and or adaptive reuse come on the street.
Councilor Taylor.
This, just because it's a wonderful segue, although it does walk away a little bit from this point, but I just love to use this opportunity just to put this through you, Mayor, to the CAO. I know we did talk about some time ago, a couple of years ago, maybe, the Cambridge South new leisure complex that's starting to be installed and will be installed sometime in this next year or so. Just wanted to, I have been talking to a fair bit of constituents in the Ward 4 area, excited that this is actually coming in. It's something that we potentially could have and I'm calling it, you can correct me on this, a mutual use agreement where we could do something to make that. And just using this opportunity just to see if that, just get that touch, because I'm sure you're gonna hear that in Branchton as well. So when we go to have that meeting again, because I have been mentioning it a lot, so just.
We've already discussed that. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Stephen.
it's-
So Madam Mayor, council will recall when you adopted the corporate strategic plan for this term of council. One of your deliverables was to approach our partner municipalities. In this case, it was Fisher and Cambridge, because you've got the new facility, aquatics facility being built on Fisher Holman. At Huron Park, at the Schlegel complex. And then in southeast Cambridge, in proximity to the future extension of the Shaver Boulevard and East Town Line Road. Both facilities are scheduled tentatively to open up mid-year, late year of 2026. I have initiated discussions with my counterparts in both municipalities about what would partnership look like to allow access for our residents in the aquatics and associated space as addresses. In terms of either a contribution toward operating and or offsetting the portion of their operating deficit attributed to both addresses.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please, Councillor Lawson?
Moved by myself, second by Council Williams, that report number 22-2025 be received. And that council endorse the memorandum of understanding with the North Dumfries Community Health Center, Langs, and the Township of North Dumfries for the 5-year term extending to July 31st, 2030 for recreational programming purposes, including as attachment number 1 to this report, subject to any minor revisions as required by the Chief Administrative Officer. And that the mayor clerk be authorized to execute the memorandum of understanding on behalf of the township with Langs.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next is report number REC 23-2025, relocation of dog park, twin pad construction at North Dumfries. Any members of the public wish to speak? Councilors. All right, we're gonna start with Councilor Tilly, then we'll go Councilor Bowman, then Councilor Williams, because we go short this time.
Thank you. Just looking at the design and the map, my only concern is just the location in comparison to the volleyball courts, if there's just still leaving enough room for them without them feeling too cramped or congested in that area. So that was the only thing that communication had happened through the staff.
So Madam Mayor, the offset is a minimum distance of 10 meters, just slightly more than 30 feet. Between what would be the fenced area of the relocated dog park to the edge of the existing outdoor beach volleyball courts.
Sorry, and Mike, I wasn't clear with my question, sorry, I'll try again. So were the Griffins contacted in regards to whether or not that's going to be a space that to work with them? Or is that something that needs to still be done, I guess?
Madam Mayor, through to Councilor Tilly, no, there was no formal discussion with the Scorpions.
Sure. Thank you.
You have a question?
Yes.
Formally approach?
I would just, thank you very much, Mayor. I would just feel that I would hate to get something built up, get it prepared, and then find out that the Scorpions are not happy with the space they've been given for any congregating or areas. I'm sure it could be all worked with, so I'm not trying to go against the concept. That was just my only concern in seeing that good design. So my question is, will there be a communication with Scorpions to make sure that that is not going to be something that they're going to be upset about?
Do you understand?
So Madam Mayor, just so I better understand, that space was never set aside for the Scorpions. The area that they have and the corridors to access their space and the parking areas remain unaffected. If council wishes to defer this to the August meeting, we could have that consultation with the Scorpions. Staff will be recommending this space It is really our only open area that's not been allocated, and we need dog park moved by the middle of August to get ready for the construction manager to commence construction. That's why this report is here today.
Councilor Tilly, would you be okay if we just notify them rather than, I think they will probably be fine, but giving them a heads up is just a courtesy. So we could still pass this motion should council wish, but also notify them as a council courtesy. Yeah, and now I go to, I believe Councilor Rowland.
Madam Mayor, my comment was actually the exact opposite of Councilor Tilly's. I was gonna point out that this is actually a better location because it has some trees, a little bit of shade, and the current dog park pretty hot and sunny. So I actually was gonna say this is a great location and that we really aren't using this property for anything. So I was gonna say the exact opposite of probably.
I don't think he was saying no, but I think he was saying consult, inform. Yeah, Councilor Williams.
Yeah, I was gonna make a comment similar to Councilor Roman. I took my dog on Sunday to the park just to kind of try it out, and she spent the entire time, she's part husky, she spent the entire time around the picnic table because I was in a bit of shade, so it wasn't useful. So my question for you, Mayor, was to staff was, is there opportunities to make sure that there's at least some shade for these puppies, because it is just really hot out there, so I won't be taking my dog back, because there's nothing, unless it's cold, so.
See you on Manny.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councilor Rose, if we relocate to the west side of the building as proposed by staff. About 80% of that common lot line between our land holding and the CPKC air spur. Either has hedgerow and or mature trees. And as such, depending upon where the sun is and the angle, there would be shade for portions of the day. Occupying a portion of both the small dog and the large dog park area.
So my 2 cents with, it would be nice if there was a bench for some of the people to sit while the dogs are running. It would be nice if there was a way of providing water for the dogs. And I mean, I don't know if we could do that, how we could do that. But if those things could be looked into, not immediately, but down in the future. CEO McNally?
So Madam Mayor, this is still our interim dog park. And as such, I mean, the bench is, an issue. That's just another, the bench and moving it. The issue of the water is a little bit more of a challenge. In other dog parks where we have foot water surface, it's basically an extension of a water service with a hydrant. That is frost free. And, you know, there's a major capital undertaking, so say, especially if we're looking at an interim facility. We're challenged right now, and why it's calling interim is because until we actually find some real estate. And then design it accordingly. We've got these temporary facilities that we have constructed. If council, after the balance of the 2025 year, looks at it and says this is actually a really good site. And we don't see other uses expanding and requiring some of that existing land to the west of this building. We made it formalize and make the investment. It is very conforming us. Our impediment has been securing the right parcel of land in terms of either through a long-term lease and or property acquisition.
Thank you. Any other questions, councilors? Seeing none, Councilor Williams, your motion, please.
Moved by myself and by Councilor Tilly that record report number 23-2025 be received. And that council authorize staff to proceed with a temporary relocation of dog park from the east side to the west side of North Dumfries Community Complex to facilitate construction of a twin pad facility, and that council authorized staff to fund the relocation of the dog park fence in the amount of $3,500 from the park trust account.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Who's that, Miss? Councilor Tilly. Not sure it's the longest one of the night.
Madam Mayor, if there may be some elements we need to speak to.
Okay, so next up is, Report number CAO 14/2025, implementation of municipal boundary adjustment, Township of North Dumfries and City of Cambridge. Dave Alton, MHBC planning has registered to speak. Dave.
It should be on.
Great. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm here tonight on behalf of Home Construction Limited and Brian Dom, landowners of what is referred to in the report as the West Lands. And we are here in full support of the staff recommendation and really wanted to just be here to speak to acknowledge the work of this council in working with the city to move this forward. And really acknowledge the work of CO McNeely in facilitating and his hard work in working with the city and bringing this forward. I know it was a lot and he was always responsive to our emails and follow-up. So we're very thankful to him for that. And we just look forward to kind of continuing to work, I guess perhaps someday soon with the city of Cambridge through the planning process, but want to thank all of you for working with us through this process. It's been a long time since we started. I think Mayor, you're on council when this maybe first came forward in 2005 as a concept. And so we're very grateful that it's kind of been moving through and just would appreciate your support of the staff recommendation this evening.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Any members of the public, anybody else wish to speak? Seeing none, questions from council? This is an important one, Council Tilly. You have to read the whole thing.
I like it. Moved by myself, second by Council Ossner, that CEO report number 14/2025 be received, and that council adopt the municipal boundary adjustment agreement included attachment number 1 to this report, and then bylaw number 3569-25 being a bylaw to confirm council support and accepting terms for the municipal boundary adjustment with the city of Cambridge be enacted. And that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the municipal boundary agreement with the city of Cambridge. And that the regional municipality of Waterloo be advised of the township's endorsement of the municipal boundary adjustment with the city of Cambridge. And to seek support of regional council to approve the minor boundary adjustment to align with the requirements of subsection 1731 of the Municipal Act 2001. And that upon receipt of the region's endorsement of the municipal boundary adjustment, the staff are authorized to submit the restructuring proposal and boundary adjustment agreement package to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for approval pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001. And that financial compensation received from the city associated with the municipal boundary adjustment be directed to the township's working reserve account for future decision on how these funds will be ultimately be allocated.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. When does this go to Cambridge Council?
All right.
Oh, okay. All right, next up is report number. Okay, report number 11/2/11, correct? Report number CAO 15/2025, fundraising delivery model NDCC net zero twin flag project. Michael Clayton, it's coming in person. Would you like to speak, Michael?
Oh. Is that the CCG managed to get everybody together, although they're traveling all over the world at the moment, to say that we endorse the MOU. It's minor tweaks, and the CAO McNeely has deferred to me that they're within his purview to make those minor changes, and so the CCG is volunteering to step up to the plate and run the fundraising campaign for the Twin Pad effort in earnest. So we're going to be launching our campaign plan and all the rest of it to be put before in the very near future.
Thank you, Michael. Any other members of the public, okay, wish to speak? Council members, any questions? And can I have the motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
Madam Mayor. My question is through the CAO, so how will the monies be handled? Because I know, in the past, there was an issue with the township getting money from the CCG. So I'm just curious, what measures has the township taken to ensure that the funds will flow into our accounts?
CEO McNeil.
Madam Mayor, through to Council Rowland, it occurs in a couple of different forms. As we've had previous discussions, cash flow is gonna be the biggest issue for us as we notionally look at spending 16 million over an approximate 2-year period of time. And that's partly because the fundraising may not necessarily be available all on day one. The federal grant may not be available all in one lump sum. It may be based on certain milestones or progress. And as such, the treasurer will be outlining almost like a cash flow statement, for lack of a better term, based on certain milestones. We will have a better understanding of what the milestones would be in general order of magnitude at various key points through the construction phase. After we've got the construction manager on site. And so that will inform largely on cash flow modeling. The report and the agreement that's drafted speak to that we will be sitting down then with the CCG and outlining what our cash flow requirements are, and that at certain intervals, the dollars flow from the CCG's account through to the township to assist us with our broader cash flow requirements. At the end of the project, so we're finished, the building is open, the CCG have wrapped up all of their expenses, because they will be incurring certain expenses as they go through different aspects of delivering fundraising. So once they reconcile all of their statements, the funds residual would be transferred to the township to be utilized for other recreation yet undefined projects. Mr. Clay did identify that there may be some further tweaks to the agreement, and one of those could be that if there's a large donation commitment given by perhaps an individual or a corporation, you might see that payment being made over several years. That's not inconsistent with what we've done on some other projects like the skate park. But I indicate to Mr. Clay that when we entered into the naming agreement with that corporation or the naming rights for that facility, we talked about the payment period and the overall amount. So some of those monies may not necessarily be available all within the 2-year period. But we would understand what our cash flow is and when the other is going to be, and we would do some internal funding to bridge that gap. But we know that there's a commitment for lack of a better term for that overall amount. So we have put in mechanisms. I can't tell you exactly how much each draw will be. But we will inform that as more information becomes available, once the construction manager has been onboarded, and we've had those initial discussions with them. As well as better understanding what the milestone dates are for $5 million federal grant.
Councilwoman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, and that speaks exactly to my point. When the initial fundraiser was done a few years ago, when I gave money, for example, my company gave money, we did it over a period of time. So the money wasn't all received up front. So the money was trickling in over a period of years to the CCG. So how are we gonna handle that? You know, I assume it's not just the major donors that will do that. I'm sure there'll be other smaller companies that can't afford a large outlay like that all at once. We're gonna have to stagger the payments over 2 or 3 years. So what mechanisms in place to deal with that?
CEO McNeil.
So Madam Mayor, we have in our process already under our naming policy, where you're dedicating a space to a named individual or corporation, and there's a cash contribution. We enter into agreements. Those agreements articulate the overall amount, what is being named, terms of that naming, and then the payment schedule. So that actually comes to council in a report, and council enters into agreement with that named individual or corporation. It's been done on the legwork of the CCG and certainly their introductions and talking about all the benefits of the project and what naming means. But it's actually implemented through a township council approved agreement.
Councilwoman.
Thank you, Member. The other question I had, is with regards to sunset clauses. I know that that's something we've discussed here at council the last number of years, is when something is named, there's a sunset clause in that donation. When this building was first constructed, there was no sunset clauses. So are we to be in a position where we have parts of the building that are named, in perpetuity? Other parts of the building will be named for a limited time period. How are we going to reconcile that with different donors, or perhaps even some of the same donors donating to parts of the building?
Cyril McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, in 2017, the Township Council approved a naming policy. It could be buildings, parts of the building, outdoor components, whatever the case may be. It actually puts a time period for those naming rights. This agreement, the MOU is drafted, talked about there are some unique elements attributed to the twin pad. And I'm going to suggest the order of magnitude that what we'll be seeking for sponsorship or naming rights for one or more elements attributed to the new building. In recognition of that larger sum, generally speaking, the naming right for a longer period of time than what's in our current naming policy, which could potentially include in perpetuity. The agreement, MOU, says that the CCG would make recommendations to council if there is a variation in one or more aspects related to your 2017 policy on naming rights. So CCG would identify where it would be appropriate or under what circumstances, and ask for permission, approval from Township Council to modify one or more aspects of your naming policy. So there's a checks and a balance. You've got a policy in place. It was generic to a whole bunch of different scenarios of public assets. The CCG, based on this project, they say we need relief, we need flexibility in this regard. And that presentation would come to Township Council, and Township Council by resolution would actually have to respond and provide direction back to the CCG.
Okay, so no other questions, the motion, please, Council Williams.
Moved by myself, seconded by Council Ossner, that report number 15-2025 be received, and that council adopt the memorandum of understanding included as attachment number 1 to this report that articulates the spheres of responsibility and mandate of the fundraising campaign to be led by the Center for the Community Group, CCG, in support of the NDCC Net Zero Twin Pad project, subject to any minor revisions as required by the Chief Administrative Officer, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the memorandum of understanding associated with the fundraising campaign in support of the Twin Pad project with the CCG, and that the steering committee, as appointed by council to support the community assessment review study and DCC Twin Pad fundraising and sponsorship program at the March 24th, 2025 meeting be released from their obligations with thanks.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you.
Now, Mayor, can I ask for one minor tweak? Recommendation number 2,
Okay,
and it's more just to clarify the name of the CCG. Technically, their legal incorporated name is Center for the Community Group of North Dumfries. And then, so where it says Center of the Community Group, we would add of North Dumfries, and then in brackets, we abbreviated to CCG.
okay, and I'm writing that in. All those in favor of the change? That's carried, thank you. All right, thank you.
Just a quick comment, we've already liquidated our investments with the one the regional foundation for the entire assets of the CCG are now available. Some of it we will hold back up for funding of keep money for various events, but then some will be able for early cash flow requirements.
Thank you, Michael. Next up, Next up is 11.2.12, report number CAO 16/2025, establishing ad hoc committee on the 24 Brantford Highway Program. Any members of the public wish to speak? Any members of council wish to make comments? This is seeing none, then Councillor Austin, the motion, please.
Moved by myself, second by Council Roman, that report number 16/2025 be received. That the council authorize the striking of an ad hoc committee that will represent a liaison body with the Ministry of Transportation to discuss and assess undertaking proposed by the province related to either operational or capital improvements to Highway 24, the Brantford Highway within North Dumfries. And that the ad hoc committee to be comprised of 2 members of council and 5 to 7 members of the public. And that the chief administrative officer be assigned to assign the authority to identify the members of the public to work with staff on the ad hoc committee. And that council confirm Ward 4 Councillor Scott Tilley and Mayor Foxton as the council representatives to the ad hoc committee. And that staff return with periodic reports to council on aspects proposed by the MTO on future undertakings related to Highway 24, Brantford Highway, and any continued concerns of residents adjacent to this provincial road corridor.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next is 11.2.13, report number PW 07/2025, the credit reduction request is McDonald subdivision, file number 30T-17301, and members of the public wish to speak on this. Councilors, any questions? Can I have a motion, please, Council Roman?
Moved by myself, by Councillor Oxner, that BW report number 07/2025 be received. And that the letters of credit for the Susan McDonald subdivision, the Gore, be reduced on the recommendation of the Township Engineering Division as follows. A, letter of credit, $53,490.53 to $0. And that staff bring forward a bylaw at the July 7, 2025 council meeting for the purposes of the assumption of the linear infrastructure components of the Gore Estates subdivision.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And next we have reading of the bylaws. First and second reading, please, Council Chair.
Moved by myself, second by Council Rowan, the following bylaws be read a first and second time. 13.1, bylaw number 3569-25, being a bylaw to confirm the support of the minor restructuring proposal and authority to enter into boundary adjustment agreement with the city of Cambridge. And 17.2, bylaw number 3570-25, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings on council on June 16, 2025.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And Councilor Wilms, third reading of the bylaws, please and findings.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Oster, that bylaw number 3569-25 and 2570-25 be read a third and final time and be assigned and sealed by the mayor and clerk.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And Councillor Austin, you seem to get the adjournments a fair bit. The adjournment, please.
Save the best for last. That whereas business before this council meeting has been completed at 7:42 PM and be it resolved that this meeting adjourned.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you.